As a general contractor and professional remodeler, I often find myself gutting plaster walls and making precision cuts into drywall to access framing. Depending on the situation and the type of wall surface, the method that I cut can vary. Normally, in a demo situation, the procedure just requires brute force, sawzalls, tearing things out, whatever. When precision cutting is required, I often use a multi-tool in a vacuum, sometimes a drywall saw, maybe even a utility knife to score and cut the board. Regardless, it's often labor-intensive process and one that I've always thought that there must be a better way to do this. Makita came out with an 18-volt cordless cutout saw that I think is a better way. We've been reviewing it for a while and we're really excited about it. It's such a better way, I think, than what I've done in the past that I often equate to what I used to do as using a rock to hammer nails. It's not designed that way. The saw looks a lot like a jigsaw, works like a jigsaw, and it's designed to provide straighter, more accurate cuts and to cut openings in installed wallboard, plaster, plywood even. Makita says that this cutout saw will cut up to 984 feet in half-inch drywall, and that is on a single charge of one 4.0 amp hour battery. The cutout saw has a variable speed trigger, which I really liked. It's easy to control, a motor that delivers 0 to 6,000 strokes per minute, and it's ideal tool, ideal for cutouts and drywall for repair applications and things like that. The cutter itself has a 1/4-inch stroke, adjustable blade that gives you a depth up to 1 3/16 of an inch. And if you use a wood blade, it gives you, or in wood, it's 9/16 of an inch. It is designed to cut wallboard but not penetrate deep enough to damage what's behind the board or even hit the stud for that matter. The blade is aggressive. If you look, it's got teeth on both sides. And as far as depth of cut goes, the Makita cutout saw depth of cut is controlled by 2 set screws that you need an Allen wrench for. The Allen wrench is on board and it is one of the most secure fitting Allen wrenches I've ever seen. There's actually a little bit of tension to it. You got to put it in a hole and put tension on it. The depth of cut adjustment is done by removing there's a plastic shroud dust collector that exposes the 2 set screws that are in the tool's shank mechanism. Once those 2 set screws are loosened, the blade then just slides easily up and down to your desired depth of cut. This saw has a clear dust box, which I mentioned, that does hold a little bit of dust before needing emptying. There's a cap on it to close it. And it's useful for making fast cuts when maybe you don't have the time or you don't have a vacuum handy. The top of that plastic shroud has a swivel dust port that when connected to a vacuum, this thing produces almost nothing for dust. The swivel on this port is a nice feature too because it allows for that kind of like a 180 or more than 180 maneuverability when connected to a vacuum hose. There is an LED light, 2 LED lights on the front upper handle of the tool, 10-second delay, and it really lights up the cutting area. The cutout tool weighs 4.2 pounds with a battery. It's extremely lightweight, well balanced, and does not cause fatigue when cutting overhead or even one-armed operation. We found it's super easy to operate and to maneuver along a cut line. We used it to demo a wall. We were putting a beam up in, removing a wall. Created 0 dust when used with the vacuum in a client's home. We also used it to open a vertical stud base so that we could install some point load framing. This thing plunge cuts super easy and it is 10 times faster than my multi-tool method. Super easy to operate either vertically on the wall or horizontally on the ceiling. It didn't matter. Like I said, you could do this one-handed. It's that easy. It provides clean cuts so much faster and easier than other methods. I can't talk enough about it. The variable speed allowed for a nice slow start and you could plunge cut and get right in there, get going along a scribed line. Gone are the days of holding a level on the wall and scribing it a bunch of times to get your cut line. It's really a great tool and one that's going to make it into my tool arsenal. Let me think. This saw itself, you can use this to cut right up the center of a stud, so that without hitting the stud, just cutting the drywall, so you can remove and make a perfect patch. Makita also sells an 18mm sharp snap blades instead of the cut blade. We did not test the snap blades. The cutout saw allows you basically to cut close, but not all the way flush to a corner. And in those situations, you're gonna have to use something else, a blade or a multi-tool to finish that cut. When I tested this, I used a Makita 36 volt backpack for dust collection. It worked amazingly well. I did have to use my own adapters and electrical tape to make the connection fit, and I'll talk about that a little bit later as far as my thoughts on that. As far as improvement goes, I'd really like to see a quick change feature for depth of adjustment, maybe removing the blade. Currently, like I said, you have to remove a clear housing, you have to unscrew 2 Allen screws to do either. It is easy and fast enough to do with the Allen wrench, but I'm a fan of toolless and cordless. I'd also like to see imperial measurements on the blade. It'd be a lot easier so you don't have to pull out your tape measure, I guess, when you're setting depth. Again, not a big deal because I always check with a tape measure to check my depth of cut, especially if you're going to be cutting into walls. It's not just cutting lumber. Let's talk a little bit about cost. The Makita 18 volt cordless cutout saw is offered as a bare tool only. It sells for $200. Currently, Makita only offers a protective blade sheath to protect the blade during storage and transport. But let's face it, and I'm going to be honest with you, that thing's going to get lost in a week. It's loose, it's not worth it. Look, I get it. It's all about cost. I view this cutout tool as a time-saving and efficient system. And as a system, I'd like to see a dust hose, hose connectors, and one of those really sexy Makita hard cases so I could store it all in. To me, that's an investment that's worth the cost. Otherwise, you're storing all these items separately, or you're kind of, putting them together to make a kit, and they're gonna get lost. Blade replacements, let's talk about that real quick because that's kind of important. This is like when the multi-tools first came out. A two-pack drywall blade is $26 and a 2-pack wood blade is $34. A dust hose that's a 1 by 11 foot hose is somewhere around $40 or $50. Again, put it all together and make it a kit. Overall impression, this saw is impressive. It allows for common, frustrating cutting applications on the job site to be done faster, way cleaner, and easier. It cuts quickly, cleanly, and there is no dust, guys. I mean that. You saw the B-roll of the video. The depth of adjustment on this tool is key, and it does an excellent job at preventing damaging anything behind that wall, like nicking wires that are close to the stud or the wallboard. And when you think about saving yourself from repairing wires, this tool just paid for itself. It's highly recommended. The crew at Toolbox Buzz loves it, and we're going to be keeping it in our trailer for future use and reference. Please consider subscribing to our video. Just click that button below, and we'll see you at the next review. Take care.